We are live. It is Monday, the Rich Lieberman Media Pulse. We're live on YouTube. If you're watching with us at this moment, congratulations. Welcome to the show. If you're watching at a later date, perhaps more suitable for your schedule, we welcome you aboard also. Look, I want to talk about an individual who presents an image that's not always the case. And I have to because that's what I do. I'm not here to make friends. I'm not here to hopefully make enemies, but even though I probably have some and vice versa for whatever reason, I think I know. But one of the reasons why you come here is you want to know certain things. And not always things that I'm going to be privy to. And in some cases, even if I am, I'm not going to come out and say things because, look, we all have privacy, less of a degree with public people or people who are in the mainstream news business, and public people in general. So, look, there's a lot of things taking place. I talked about Dennis Richmond. I gave my issues with regards to his health condition. I, again, want to reiterate, I wish him well. I hope he has a speedy recovery. I hope he's not in any kind of pain. And I've said all of my, platitudes, even though there are some things that I know about that I don't want to infer, but are nonetheless not very positive things. But I'm not going to talk about that now when Mr. Richmond is in a state where he is. It's not my coolness. And some of these people are on Facebook. I haven't gone there and I don't want to go there with regards to checking on somebody's health situation based on Facebook postings. I find that highly grating and irritating and just so frankly the sign of the times that we're in. Look, this part I have not come public with because I wanted to keep some things, off topic, off the domain, so to speak. But in this instance, I have to come clean. Look, for many a years, I respected Mark Ibanez. I knew Mark when, frankly, I was a teenager, late in my years. Met him in 1979 when I was in my senior year, actually entering my senior year at Skyline and graduated. And I became friendly. In fact, my family at the time, when I had a family, my mom was still alive. My sisters were around. I had my brother-in-laws, my brother himself. My brother and my sisters used to take my mother to Hawaii. And my sisters got to know, not very, very well, but one sister in particular hired Mark's at that time. I believe his name was TF or TJ or something like that. I haven't paid attention to work with my sister, who had an estate business in Alameda. So anyway, and at the time I was just starting out in the business around 1982 to be exact. I was 20 years old. And I remember really knowing Mark at the time. 3 years into his job at KTVU, he and his cameraman at the time, we used to socialize. And he gave me a ride to the Cal football game, which was the play. So, and Mark was and is still is to some degree a real good guy, and became working obviously as a second fiddle to Gary Park, the late great Gary Park. Many of you remember Gary Park from KTVU. Started out news, became a sports fixture, etc., etc. Anyway, long story short, in this part, got to know Mark very well, and we would talk sports and the business, all that stuff. And so Mark began a very, very lengthy, respected popular foray at KTVU, was one of their top personalities, and took over for Gary Park. He became real chummy, professionally speaking, with Dennis Richmond, and then was the beginning of the, as I refer to it in news terms, local TV news, the Core Four at Channel 2, which was Mark and Dennis Richmond, Julie Hayner, and the weather anchor Bill Martin. Well, now we only have one of those left, and that's Bill Martin, who really shouldn't be there, but that's another story. And Mark, as I said, very well connected, well respected, Bay Area guy, big Giants fan, and all that, and recently retired a couple of years ago at Channel 2 after 43 years. Very solid person and very solid sports anchor. Knew his stuff, wrote his own material, wrote his own sportscast, and developed into a top flight Bay Area news personality and sports personality. But things started getting a little awry at KTVU around 2015-16. They were start making inferences, they being management, to Mark to basically retire, but not on his terms. They wanted him to go bye-bye. They wanted him to leave, basically. They thought that his best days were behind him and that he wasn't being the capable guy that he was. It had nothing to do with his presentation. They began to believe that he started to look old and that he was not, the guy that he used to be. Well, we're all not the people that we used to be, right? We all age. We have situations, health, or what have you. Anyway, Mark didn't see kind of that. Mark actually was still very popular, got tons of viewer feedback, mostly positive, and was still considered at the top of his game. Who said as much about him being at the top of his game? Me. Me. And I said, Mark Ibanez is not for everybody, but the majority of viewers in the Bay Area really liked him, really thought he was jovial and enthusiastic and capable and very concise and crisp with his sports interviews and his sports anchor presentation. Anyway, and the ratings didn't indicate otherwise. 10 o'clock news, him and Julie. And of course, by this time in the mid 2010s, around 2015-16, Dennis Richmond had already retired. Retired in May of 2008, to be exact. But then we had Frank Somerville and Hayner. And we had Julie doing her thing, Bill Martin on the weather, and of course, Mark Ibanez on sports. But at this point, KTVU, namely Fox, the firm, management was then starting to really, really hone down on Mark retiring. And he resisted. And he had built up a lineage, and his stylistics and all that stuff were still intact. We're still very fluid. We're still very concise. There was no reason for him. Only reason for him to retire was if he thought, you know what, I'm done. I want to get out of here and that kind of a thing. But Mark thought otherwise, as did I. To again make a long story shorter, the pushback was really starting to take its shape around 2020, the beginning of the pandemic. And Fox really wanted Mark to go bye-bye. I had written, I'm not saying this as a matter of, being selfish, like I'm the only one, but I really was the only one. And I said, Mark, you shouldn't go. And he agreed. And he kept getting a contract. He wanted a lengthier contract, but they kept giving him at best 2-year extensions. And around the time in 2022, um, Mark was ready to go. They gave him an offer, golden parachute, all that. But he still was resentful because he thought that he was still very much at the top of his game, that he was doing good sports interviews, that he enjoyed a wide variance of popularity, not only amongst the viewers, which the only thing that counts, and he was respected at Channel 2, built up a vast reservoir of goodwill amongst people who worked there, who were not just at Channel 2, but also around the industry. Mark Ibanez was at the top of his game. He indicated to me, and I can say this now because he left the station, but all the while they were telling him to split and basically get going. Mark was wanting one more payday, one more stint, one more extension, and really thought he should stay on, perhaps till he reached 70, which at the time was only a couple of years away, actually 3 years away, and was at one point very hostile and became angry. And when it was determined that he was going to be leaving around March of the year 2022, he told me that he was in no mood to do any kind of, shall we say, on-air tributes. Ended up having a very, very big tribute for him. He took part in it, but he was not very happy. Look, the career that he built up was so much successful and storied, Bay Area wise, one of the most popular people. You put him in the same category as a Wayne Walker. I'm talking sports anchors now. Wayne Walker, maybe to a lesser degree, Gary Radnich, because Gary Radnich was so, vastly huge and all that. Mark was a little bit more understated, nevertheless, very popular. I mentioned colleagues, co-workers, not just at Channel 2, but around the industry gave him high marks. And a very nice person to boot. Bay Area native, Bay Area sports fan, Giants, worked not only at KTVU, worked in radio at KNBR years ago. But Mark wasn't happy because he believed that he was worthy of one last 2-year stint, or 3 even, maybe 2 and a option, and when he reached 70, because that's when you're really pushing it, especially in this environment today. But that didn't happen. So, and again, he was not a happy camper. He told me directly he would take his last broadcast, do a little bit of a tribute on his own and acknowledgement and all that, and not take part in the ceremony you could see it online. I'm not going to link it, but if you just type in Mark Ibanez, retirement, KTVU, YouTube, you'll get to see the whole thing. What bothered me was, and this is a little bit inside baseball, but I'm telling you now because I'm hearing all this stuff about him saying things through friends and industry people about, especially with Dennis Richmond's condition and all that, and being chummy with Dennis Richmond. He wasn't exactly a 100,000% Richmond loyalist either, but he respected Dennis. And again, I want to make sure I have to watch myself here. I'm referring to Dennis Richmond past tense. Dennis Richmond, as far as I know, is still alive, and hopefully is going to overcome this very serious setback. But in any event, Mark Ibanez was angry, and he conveyed that to me personally. Yet, he took part in that charade, that voluntary sort of, I'm leaving, and I had all the people, his family, and all that, and really everything he told to me and a few others was completely contrary to the way in which he acted when he left KTVU and Fox. So now all of a sudden he's all chummy and giddy and all that. And look, everybody has a right to rethink things. Retirement, a wonderful virtue, especially when you've spent the amount of time that Mark Ibanez did at one station. So that's fine. What bothered me, folks, was, as I said, him personally telling me that he was not the jovial one, that he thought he was due, and that frankly he had earned one last payday. And I say payday, I don't mean that in the strictest sense. He was very comfortable, as a big home up in Napa, very prominently involved in the social world up there, and indeed included in the Bay Area. But Mark wasn't ready to retire. Matter of fact, he was so unwilling to go. There were several attempts, both directly and indirectly, made at various stations in the Bay Area. One I could say for sure, one I heard rumors of, one was KPIX, maybe as a second fiddle to Vern Glenn, and obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but Cron, which is completely in stupid mode these days, but and it had nothing to do with money. Mark was very comfortable, as I stated, made himself very, very good, cushy lifestyle, got an amazing, amazing golden parachute from Fox at the end. But he had success. He still felt very capable. I totally agreed. I, at the time, was writing more, and I wrote as much. Give him one last deal. You've got very popular people, do you, KTVU, Fox, with Frank. This is before the Frank Somerville mess. You had Julie Hayner, Bill Martin, least popular of the four, but still capable, all that stuff. And a very prestigious Channel 2 and their news, especially 10 o'clock, where they have their bread and butter. So Mark, contrary to all this chumminess, and I retired at my own will, no, he didn't. And he wanted one more dance, and they wouldn't let him. And I got angry because I was made to believe that, and I'm not saying you go in there and you become hostile and angry and all that. You'll leave that maybe to some other folks that know you, that are friends, colleagues, former workers, that kind of a thing. You're diplomatic. Mark Ibanez is a diplomatic guy, but I lost touch with Mark a few years back, and he was hostile at me, I believe, because I had written at that time and had said on very many occasions, like I am today, that this really loving relationship between he and Fox 2, KTVU, and the people and the powers that be was far from jovial. Let's just say that. And that I was only saying this because I was made to look like a fool when I said he was not happy at the end. I'm sure he was happy when he got the money and the severance and the golden parachute and all that. And look, we all have our moments. We all act differently, especially at the end when we call it quits. Sometimes not on our own doing and all that. But Mark got offended at that, and so we haven't spoken in a while. And at this point, I mean, I don't care. As I've said a million times, I'm not here to make friends. People view me as some sort of a taboo figure, only though at the end when they need me, when they use me, and when it's convenient to use me so that it can get out there about certain information that may not be, shall we say, friendly to management and to other powers that be, then it's okay. Then suddenly I'm nirvana. So that's what bothered me. Mark isn't alone on that situation. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds. Suffice to say that the Mark Ibanez that came across as this, really popular, friendly, yada, 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 I'm sure he still is. Just not as jovial and giddy and quirksome in a positive manner individual as it's made out to be. There's a lot of, shall we say, use your own imagination notices here. So that's all I'll say at this point. And by the way, unequivocally, look, Mark had a relationship, a business relationship with Julie Hayner, and they met many a times. Met, heck, they worked with each other for over 20 years. When especially when Dennis Richmond retired, so they were close confidants. I'm not going to say I know 100% certain, nor would I want to know or care, because that's a big deal. It's not even none of my business, so to speak, which translates to your business. But did they have moments? Of course they did. Close business. It's sometimes personal. You develop a bond with somebody. And yes, it could be a woman and it could be a man, but they're both happily married, as far as I knew at the time. And they did have close business moments. Anything else? I'm not going to put my life on it, but that's going to be, well, who cares, really, frankly. So there's inferences out there, oh, that maybe they became so close that, whatever. And you know what? If it's the case, God, so what? Big deal. That's between them and their family and all that, okay? And I'm not making any inferences whatsoever. I'm just saying, you know what? We got bigger fish to fry, as do they, in this world that we live in today. Look, I will later on today be back, I hope. If not, we'll see you on Tuesday. But folks, do me a favor. If you can, please make a contribution via PayPal on my blog site, via the YouTube channel, which I do my show here. That enables me paying my bills, my internet, phone, fast speed, all that. And yes, me personally, so I can continue to give you a quality show, quality information, and quality presentation and scoops every now and then, in addition to interviews, in addition to news people and sports people and social people that make up the Bay Area media scene that you will not get anywhere else, including interviews. I'm working on many interviews, but the money that you contribute to me, I need to live and to do this. I'm not, lifting crates. I view this as a very, very personal thing, and I love doing it, but it requires lots of time and money. So please, yes, unequivocally, I need your support. And I want to thank those of you who have been very generous. I'm struggling to keep this going. I want to give it every ounce of my attention. And everyone who watches, they ask me questions. Oh, is this like the blog? You're not having the views. Folks, I've barely done this a year. And because of a variety of health reasons, I can only broadcast now. It's very difficult to write, and it's lengthy, it's irksome, it's laborious. This is not anything different than that, other than it's a camera. I voice information that I get. Sometimes I do opinion. And yes, sometimes I even get people on here, celebrities, news, sports, information, social, what have you, that talk about Bay Area media, national media. Well, I like living too. I like enjoying the fruits of labor. I like getting contributions in December too. Holiday greetings and holiday wishes. It makes my day go by really nice, gives me a little bit of enjoyance and all that. But first and foremost, it allows me to pay bills. And if just a few of you donated $5, $10, 20, 100, thank you. Those of you who've been very, very generous during the holidays, who enjoy watching me. Maybe don't enjoy watching me that much, but enjoy the information I spew out, put out, etc., while not getting bamboozled by certain local media sites who like to lift from me every now and then. So please, if you can contribute, also become a member of my show by subscribing here on YouTube and watching on my Google page. Rich Lieberman is gone and out for today. I'll talk to you soon.